Hey guys, how's it going? It's Jay here. Another episode of Take 2 on SoundStage. Today I'm going to give you my second opinion on a speaker behind me, a very special speaker, the PSB Synchrony B600 bookshelf speakers. Now, these are very special speakers, and because they're made in Canada, it is a speaker that has a place in my heart. Now, however, in this video, I'm going to give you my opinion and we'll go over some of the build quality and stuff like that. But for the nitty-gritty stuff, the original review can be found on SoundStageHifi.com, and it was written by Diego on November 15th, 2021. And it will be in the link description below for you to check out. So make sure and read that because there's a lot of detail on how these speakers are made, what kind of criteria, because that's very important. Because these speakers are pretty impressive in the way they are designed. They are designed by none other than Paul Barton himself. And if you don't know Paul Barton, he's basically an engineer that has been legendary in our field, in this industry, because he's been designing a lot of loudspeakers and he does double-blind A/B testing, measurements at the National Research Council. Unlike many hi-fi companies, these speakers were built in a facility that is very reputable. It is an anechoic chamber, which if you don't know what that means, is basically a research center with big foam sticking out where accurate measurements can be taken with very professional microphones, gear, and etc. by professionals like Paul Barton himself. And for a speaker that has that much engineering put into it and research, R&D, and all that stuff, the price point is quite reasonable, around $2,500 US. And considering all things and done, these speakers pack a lot of technology and features into the speakers themselves that is quite textbook to some degree, if I may add, but also a little bit out of the box thinking in ways you will see later in this video. So talking about the textbook side of things first, this speaker is a classic textbook style bookshelf speaker done right. In terms of drivers, it has a 1-inch titanium dome tweeter and a 6.5-inch mid-range woofer that has an aluminum basket and a woven carbon fiber cone, which are all good, again, proven textbook materials for a tweeter and a woofer design that PSB has been using. Another thing is that it has an aluminum clad in the front, which is basically the faceplate of the speaker itself. And I think I repeated this quite a few times in my channel and on the SoundStage Take 2 series as well, but the front baffle is very important when it comes to a speaker design. This essentially allows the drivers to be mounted properly into the front baffle and in a very rigid fashion, kind of getting rid of the resonances or unwanted things that may happen if you mount a speaker directly to a front baffle without any reinforcements. So this type of reinforcement has been used for a very long time. It's not a new revolutionary thing. But again, it's nice to see that it's being implemented because it's something that has been proven to be quite good for speaker designs itself. It's a backported design, again, a classic design to kind of increase that bass output. But in this case, again, it's tuned extremely well considering all things because this speaker is really impressive in the bass region. It's one of the best speakers when it comes to that bass presence. But we'll talk more about that bass in a minute when I get to the sound impressions. Overall, this speaker is phenomenal in its build quality, and for $2,500 US, it is one of the top tier in terms of build quality. Again, internally as well, it's using high quality components suitable for this price range in my opinion. And the crossover is a very sophisticated link width design with the cabinet being an MDF cabinet with very heavy reinforcements so that the cabinet doesn't resonate as much or emit unwanted resonances, more importantly. So all these qualities combined, the build quality on this speaker is phenomenal. Lastly, what I have to really say is that I was quite astonished to find isoacoustic feeds under these speakers. Now, also these can be found on the T600, which is a tower version of these speakers as well. And it seems that isoacoustic has teamed up with PSB or vice versa to bring these feet into these speakers, and these feet are quite special. And usually I don't talk about spikes or feet too much, but isoacoustic is one of those products that I personally use myself on a daily basis with my platforms and all that stuff. It's a very good isolating material, brand, product, whatever you say. I have used quite a bit of their stuff if you ask me. So it's kind of nice to see these products that actually work being implemented. And one thing about PSB is that because they are a research-oriented company, they usually don't go with stuff that actually doesn't do much but adds to the price, which here obviously is a good investment in my opinion to add these feet into these speakers. The only downside though that I find is that I had trouble finding a speaker stand that would fit these feet because they're quite far apart from each other, and these speakers are by no means a small bookshelf speaker. They're around mid to a bigger sized bookshelf speaker in my books. It's kind of hard to find a platform that would hold these speakers properly. Now with this being said, PSB does have their own 24-inch stands dedicated to these speakers, which I was not able to have at this time. Therefore, I was not able to actually utilize the feet. Which brings us to the sound quality of this video, which kind of ties in nicely here because perhaps the key here was the isoacoustic feeds after all. Because the bass I was getting out of these speakers were very impressive. In fact, my friends that came over to listen to these speakers were just absolutely blown away comparing it to one of the speakers that we really loved that kind of portrayed a floor standing experience was the Bucard S400, the original. And these speakers were, kind of the Bucard on steroids. The bass were just massive amount of hit in the low frequency. It rumbled. It was like I was hearing a floor stander. In fact, I would go far as to say I really don't hear this much bass in a lot of floor standers. So kind of the irony is that this speaker, despite being a bookshelf speaker, has so much bass that it really rivals some of the full-sized floor standers. And despite this speaker being not a total full range speaker, it doesn't go from 20 Hz to 20 kHz flat per se, but I did not miss any type of bass. I felt like I was getting 20 Hz. I know I was not, but I felt like so. Did not miss bass whatsoever. From mid bass even down to the lower frequencies, it was just kicking some ass. It was a great time. But there was something that was a little bit bothering me, and that was that it was having this chuffing, and I don't want to use the word chuffing because it's not exactly the right word, but I guess that's the best way to put it. In this case, basically the air escaping from the port behind the speakers was something that was audible to my ears. Now, this could be the resonance that could have been taken care of by using the isoacoustic feet properly, which I wish I got the chance to test out, but was not able to. But one thing I did was I put the speakers on a table instead of a stand. And yes, I did that to actually see if that would solve the issue. And for the most part, from what I can tell, that test really didn't do much for me because I could still hear the air escaping from the port behind the speakers. So maybe it was just that I had to pull the speakers more out of my room, which I tried, and that definitely did help to a certain degree. So the bass is extremely impressive, but you may need some space and quite a bit of space from the wall behind the speakers so that you may not run into the problems that I ran into. And also the bass amount is quite tremendous as well, which also kind of goes with what I said of pulling these speakers out of the room. So these are classic one of those speakers that require that kind of treatment in my books. Now another unique thing about this speaker is that the on-axis response is on the mid-range woofer. So usually the idea is to have the tweeter at ear level. Instead, for this speaker, the correct way to set it up is to have the mid-range driver at ear level. Now with this being said, the other criterias are not so much. Meaning they have great off-axis response, they have great SoundStage, they have great imaging, which means they are pretty flexible. It's just that it just needs some wall behind the speakers. Other than that, in terms of toe-in, in terms of placement between the speakers, you really couldn't go wrong. Of course, there's ideal setups, but wherever I put it, whether the speakers were facing out towards the room or toed in towards me, I found these speakers to be quite pleasant and quite enjoyable in its own way. Of course, classically, because this is a very textbook speaker, once you face these speakers out towards the room, you get more SoundStage, but lose a little bit of that focus down in the middle, center imaging. However, if you tow them towards you, then you get more of that focus right down the middle, sacrificing a little bit of that SoundStage. But overall, just absolutely great speakers. Textbook, which doesn't confuse you too much because it's very straightforward on how you should place them, and what you've been taught on this channel, my channel, and every other channel kind of applies to the speaker to almost the dot. Now in terms of the mid-range and high frequency, again, very textbook, very neutral, and one thing that does impress me is that the bass response is so impressive, yet it doesn't overtake the mid-range or the high frequency. Often I would hear tremendous amount of bass, but the mid-range and the high frequency would just not be as refined, or it would be a bit recessed or dipped down. In this case, you don't have that issue whatsoever. Even though the bass was tremendous, I was able to hear the mid-range and the high frequency very clear and very refined, especially for this price range. So again, I have to say, all in all, this speaker I think is just a very good neutral speaker with a bit of bass impressive factor. And to add all that together, for $2,500 in terms of value, in my books, is phenomenal because it packs a lot of technology, a lot of engineering, a lot of textbook speaker. If you're just looking for something that is textbook good, like a speaker that is just a good speaker, engineered properly for a very good value proposition, these speakers are it, in my opinion. If you're looking for something a little bit different, like horn designs, tubes and stuff like that, that may be a different topic. But in terms of the overall step forward in the right direction of engineering, all I have to say is Paul Barton, NRC. And I don't know about you, but personally for me, considering that a lot of the high-end brands out there, not saying all, but some don't have these type of facilities, it's kind of reassuring for me, regardless of the price range, that I'm getting something that's been tested and really dialed down with both blind A/B testing and measurements. Whether you believe or measurements or not, that's not the topic. It's just proper engineering. Because I like to believe there should be a specific set of methodology, steps involved with engineering, whether it be a horn design, like an unconventional tube design, or a textbook design like this. It doesn't really matter. There needs to be a certain set of standards and engineering methodology, which clearly exists here on this speaker and PSB speakers in general, which is nice to see and reassuring. So overall speaking, in terms of the sound itself, I think that it is one of the top contenders in this $2,500 field. And if you're talking about just value in terms of proper engineering and with proper methodology, these speakers really, in terms of both build quality and sound quality, is there to last. In fact, these speakers are so well rounded that it could be used for home theater and for music entertainment as well, in my opinion. Now in terms of gear, I really liked the Denafrips gear with these speakers. Of course, if I really wanted to pick a gear with these speakers that I really wanted to try, I think I would choose Name, just because Name is I think it just will go well together. But another one that I really liked was the NAD C298 that I reviewed earlier on this channel as well. But I guess the rule of thumb here is that the more power these speakers receive, the more well it performs. And I can really see the speakers even performing really well in a medium and even a large size room, to be honest. So I guess this video is a little bit longer than my usual Take 2 series videos, but these speakers really did deserve the attention, and I think it really deserves your attention, and you should go audition it or listen to it yourself. It really deserves, just very impressive when you hear it. There's an immediate wow factor, just like the original Bucard S400 and speakers that promise that floor standing experience. This speaker has that, but I think it's by far the best yet, and definitely the best PSB speakers I've heard to date yet. So that's pretty much it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.